get back in there.
Very good. Very good. So in this room, in the library of life, with thousands upon thousands of shelves, full of ancient leather-bound books, with gold writings inscribed on the covers. You may see filing cabinets around that reach the height of the room with ladders that can help you gain access. Or your akashic records could be in the attic or the cellar with aged heavy trunks that contain photograph albums that relate to each and every experience that you have had and will have. Each record is carefully indexed with a label in alphabetic order. And I will go quiet for a few moments as you search whatever it is that you seek, as you wish to discover more details.
There's like a golden orb at the back of the room, like mother of pearl, on a golden set of wings. I feel like this is relevant for something, but I'm not entirely sure what.
Do you get a sense of this place?
Yeah. I mean,
Have you been here before?
Yeah, I have. I didn't see it as this big though before, because when I was doing it before, when I first started meditating, it was just a room like with a table and contracts everywhere. But this maybe feels like an extension of that room. Perhaps beyond the first room and into the second room. And then there's so much more hiding in here. But this is like in relation to the past lives and future lives.
Yes.
I feel kind of excited to look into the future lives at the moment. Yeah.
Why not?
Okay. So that's kind of what this orb is for, this golden orb. Well, this mother of pearl orb, it looks like.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go over to this orb now. And I've got my hands on it, either side.
Very good.
getting like a lot of resistance to looking into the future.
Oh, yeah.
It's like fear of what is to come, maybe.
Just remember that these future lives, or even future in this life, would be what you planned for yourself.
Yeah.
So it would be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah. Just like mastery of magic. Mastery of abilities. Mm.
And as you touch the sword,
Mm-hmm.
let's see what this wants to show you. It's travel now through space and time. 3, traveling through space and time. 2, let's see what the orb wants to show you today. And 1, and be there now.
I'm seeing this man that looks almost like a Viking. With this blue panel running across his forehead with like 5 white dots coming down from where the hairline would be. Dot, 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 down to the 3rd eye. He looks angry though. Yeah, it's weird.
Let's find out a little more. About who this man is.
Says I'm Zalam.
Salam.
Yeah, Zalam.
And Salam, where are you from?
North of Viticus, something like that. It's like a planet. Or Viticus. I think it's Viticus.
Very interesting. Tell us more about this planet.
tribal earth workers. The tribal earth workers, they're saying.
Mm. And what is this work you do, Salam?
We're able to move it's able to move the ground and build with the ground.
Very interesting.
This is weird though, because I've just been watching a cartoon like this that
Ah.
has this, so I don't know whether, because he doesn't want to come in and talk through me though, that's the thing.
Mm. Let's ask him why he is angry today.
It is just the demeanor that I hold. We are calm people.
Mm-hmm.
We are a calm tribe. We are very grounded, very neutral. But our appearance is more of a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
We have come to him today
Mm-hmm.
as he has been wondering about his elemental magic and construct that he has been working with in his healing.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a string of sessions with different elements.
Wonderful.
To really bring the understanding of the groundwork, to master each element, and to allow the elements to work with you, as there are 5 in total, to work in co-creation with healing, manifestation, construction.
Mm-hmm. So you say there's 5 elements.
Yes.
Very good.
He has been working with the 5 devas of the divine feminine, being the divine female counterparts of the masculine element. But the strength and power of the masculine side must come through into balance. To really anchor the knowing and the knowledge of how we work in unison. he must take a bit more time to allow information to flow. Sometimes it won't connect straight away. So working with the ground element, the earth element, is to understand the earth is nourishing. It provides shelter. And shelter is protection. As well as nutrients and life force to essentially bring something to life. So it is the core crust of the manifestation to really anchor your manifestation into reality is to work with the earth element. Placing your creation upon fertile soil and bringing heat from the sun, the fire, creativity. To allow it to grow.
Wonderful.
Ether will charge this as that ether comes from the sun and also from the earth, divine masculine, divine feminine, birthing the child of creation, birthing the concept. Now, as this comes into each stage of growth, the element of water
Yes.
and air will also play into this factor. The water being the emotion, and the air being the mental. The water will be how you are feeling and feeding this creation, feeding it with your emotion. Making it grow in high vibration will present a more balanced project, a more balanced outcome.
That makes perfect sense.
So therefore, by injecting this positive mindset into the thought form will build a sturdy foundation for the emotional outcome, and vice versa. Now, subject to the individual in the creative pattern, the programs and patterns the individual has moved through in his life will also play factor to the birthing process, the birthing of creation. So keeping the body clear and clean, and deprogrammed. Will present a more positive outcome and flow of project management. Whereas the negative, if we look at the project with failures, with problems, this would be a representation of areas of the life of the individual that are struggling to be healed and refuse to be looked at. As a wake up to see yourself in the reflection, in areas of this manifestation, one might micromanage the people, micromanage the emotions and the thoughts, which in some cases this is needed to balance certain areas rather than looking at the foundations for resolving the structural issue. Resolving and micromanaging the smaller parts would be like that into replacing bolts and screws. But resolving the structural foundation would be to take a look at the belief system and to really make the biggest impact on the shift.
Very interesting.
So the earth aspect would be the structural foundation, the core belief. Taking a look at the belief system of why the conduit does not believe he can do something twice would actually be to look at this from the esoteric side. And that would be to recognize and understand that each channeling is different. Each point of entry is different. As this opens up room for growth. And with each entry to dialogue with being, the opening up of new resistance to harness higher intelligence and a different perspective, the perspective as a whole.
You mentioned the air and the mental.
Yeah.
That's the mental side. Can you tell us a bit more about that? It's very interesting.
Sahan, air element, divine masculine, present.
Ah.
The thought form, when combined with emotion, creates the sine wave that then gets put out by the different energy centers and the electromagnetic frequency, electromagnetic field. To attract the initial people, materials, and ether to bring the initial steps of manifestation into play. For each thought and word is like prayer, which then, if you break this down further and look into the relationship sides of the life,
Yes.
when we are thinking, or when one is thinking negative thoughts after a disagreement towards a partner, this is then bringing that manifestation into play.
Yes.
The continuation of these thoughts, which can then go into emotion and spoken word, start to call forth the element of ether, the energy, which when combined, thought, emotion, ether, attraction, brings forth the fractalization of the creation, which in turn brings the turbulence in the relationship that can last a short time or a long time, whether one is forgiving or they hold on to the anger, they hold on to the problem. It's a very fine line. To crumble a relationship. Now, let's take that example and place that into a project manifestation. Finding these areas more challenging will prolong the difficulty and prolong the completion of the manifestation. Whereas instead of complaining, one can communicate with the earth element and ask for the transformation of the thoughts, asking for the transformation of emotion regarding the situation, and then taking a look at the belief system. As to why this does not work, or why they are having the issue.
Yes.
Most of it lies with belief in themselves. And this is the crux point at this node point, this nexus now time, is looking at the belief in themselves. Yes. Once the belief in themselves has been resolved, the questioning of their process and the questioning of their inner self will cease, making a more fluid, faster manifestation. And now, with the shift going on in the earth domain, the manifestations are getting more fast, more potent, more accurate as they step away from the need to be governed. They are taking control of themselves, or taking command, rather, we should say.
Yes. Yes. She's very good.
It is a long time coming, but done ever so well.
It makes me wonder why, as a human collective, we decided that we always needed someone to rule over us.
When one can't control themselves, they need someone to control.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for that. A lot of this with the speaking about the earth today took me back to the moment where I was told to go to Uffington in a chalk horse in the ground. And I was wondering about the significance of the actual connection with Mother Earth there.
What does the horse do?
Ah.
You can ride it. It's that energy that's needed to show you that you're being carried.
How wonderful.
Being carried in the direction that you need to go with support. Sometimes you feel tired and a loss for which way to go. And in these times, the carrying needs to be shown to you, that you're being guided. You are being taken for a purpose.
That is just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that message.
Welcome.
As you're speaking of the elements, I was wondering about, Felix had questions today about the symbols as well. And the symbols that he's using in his sessions. And he's using them in the highest vibration possible. So he was speaking about the seal of Solomon and the symbol of the pentagram, the star.
Okay. He is using this in a high vibrational way, a high vibe, with the intention to help. Whereas how it was used in the negative side, this was used to control. It was used to harm. The way that Felix is using it would be to release the chains and release the control of the individual that these entities had placed over them. So it would be reversing the pattern. It would be reversing the spell to break free. So the person who had the problem wouldn't feel controlled or influenced by these beings again. So the seal of Solomon is just a symbol. It depends on the intention of the person using it. He is doing it for freedom. They were doing it for power, for control.
Wonderful.
Now, with the elements, each individual one can be used in many different ways. The element of air with the sword can be used to shift the thought patterns and the thought forms into a more expansive, more creative, more loving direction. It can also blow out the different thought form attachments from the physical body, from the mental body. And with that gust of wind, that air, it can also pull out the emotions with it. Now, when combining the air with the water, like a storm, we are then bringing in the emotional element to clear and clean the body. These are just some of the ways you can use it. The possibilities are endless.
I see.
It depends on what is needed for the client that will happen. And the conduit being open to receive.
Yes, of course. On that, following on from that, he was wondering about his psychic ability with respects to finding the root cause of the illness in the person and the struggles to pull out that root cause. And he was wondering, is he missing something?
Iana, water element, divine feminine.
Hi.
Salutations, greetings. With this element of understanding the psychic ability is really the link is through the emotion. Now, being able to feel the emotion is a key to harnessing where the problem lies. However, this can also be linked with the air, the masculine mental. When thinking about the problems or thinking about where the issue is coming from, coming into a state of free flow. So the water would be flowing, the thought form would be movement, understanding the movement of the thought form will bring the initial psychic understanding of the illness. So allowing that message to come in, it can be done with that way. How, with the emotion part of it, the emotion will tell you what it is holding on to, where it is rooted as a mixture of questions and answers. looking in to the parts of the body and really feeling where the heaviness lies and allowing that to crack open. Will bring forward the answer as well as coming into the surrendering state. To be able to see some things won't be allowed to be seen straight away, as they need to go through other parts of healing. Matched up with belief. The belief that they can.
Yes.
And it's also important to understand that layers upon layers need to be pulled and sometimes sat with to go through. A combination of heart and third eye connection, rather than being completely in the heart, is another way to kind of flick between the two, the divine masculine, divine feminine, to receive the answers. It won't all necessarily lie in through the heart. As thought needs to take place, that thought can be done through the heart, though. It's for each person in their own journey, at their own level of awakening and level of awareness. They will have to tap into different energy centers to receive bits of information. For example, connecting to the root chakra of somebody, of a client, you will feel that in your own root, your own heart and third eye for the answers. So bringing them together, getting the thought form, getting the feeling in the heart, and getting the blockage from the root, meeting them together in the heart. To unblock it, to crack open the blockage, revealing and what it is, which will then present in the third eye. So it kind of moves as a combination rather than a straightforward linear, it's in the heart, it's in the mind, it's in the solar plexus, or, okay. So there are many areas as to where these parts come from. Now, digging in, going deeper into the root would be to allow the very first time this will come up, allowing the very first incident. This will be past life in most cases. It would be probably more accurate to say in all cases. But at the time being, the ones who will be listening to this will need to understand you can also access it from the present life too, from that initial trigger point.
Very good. Is there, was there anything that he needed to do more to excel and expand this psychic ability that he has to make it grow? What can he do?
He needs to meditate sitting up in the chair. That is the best point for him to take away.
Okay.
For this, as he is not in connection to any backrest, so he's able to feel all areas of himself. As he does this, he stays in focus because he's having to maintain a position where the energy can move through in free flow.
Okay.
Yes. And this is the same for all people. To get into that state of doing it, it is absolutely okay to lie down at first. But once you have done, or one has done, a huge amount of clearing like the conduit has, you will then be pushed into trying new things by your inner being, by your guides, to really anchor and get deeper into your practice. This is a flow, this is a process. It's okay if we go back a little bit. Sometimes we need to eat a sweetie every now and then. But then knowing that, it really excels you that much more forward. He needs to use the bathroom again. Let's get back in there.
Very good. Very good. So,
yeah.
Do we still have our...
We do.
Elementals with us? Very good. So, let's talk a little more about chakras.
Okay.
The combination of chakras. Felix was wondering about the function also about the combinations
Okay.
of how they work together. So trauma, for example, for him was the crown and the solar plexus in conjunction.
I think that was more of an example,
Mm-hmm.
the crown and the solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
The crown blockages would be to do with thinking, how fluid your thoughts are,
Mm-hmm.
and how easy they come into flow. So when one is experiencing judgment,
Mm-hmm.
it blocks the thought form, creating blockages within the crown.
Mm-hmm.
So the judgment would prevent an easy flow of thought.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay. So that would be an issue with the root and the crown together. The judgment creating the blockage at the root, but also as the judgment comes through in the crown, it blocks up certain neural pathways to be able to move this thought to create an easier decision. No, this also prevents the common sense as well. Common sense decisiveness. So this is something that Felix has been dealing with actually. He hasn't really looked too much into it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel, or we feel, that now is the time to release this, as he has been experiencing some heavy spells of amnesia, some forgetting,
Mm-hmm.
which this is actually a combination of ascension with blockages. So once the blockages are removed, these processes of letting go become a lot more easier, more fluid. He has found himself coming in to 0 point more frequently. He hasn't recognized it fully as 0 point yet. And also into love. So now he is surrendering into releasing the judgment on himself. Releasing out of his feet. And at the same time, expanding his belief in himself, his self-confidence.
Wonderful.
So what can be done is to also be looking at why he judges himself and why does he feel he still needs to. Taking a look at that belief system.
Yes.
And allowing his higher self to provide the answers.
Yes.
He judges himself because he is surrounded by judgment in his career. This is higher self speaking. He has to judge his work instead of allowing flow, which he has been working on very well, but without addressing the root issue, without thinking about the root, which is something he needs to be doing more of.
Yes.
So he has to put a judgment on himself, or he has been putting a judgment on himself and not trusting his ability to create with confidence.
Yes. And that explanation today about the inner workings of the creation was wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So there is more. The belief system that he can do things by himself is down to the lack of validation he received from his father. So he never knew he was working well. He also was a very different learner to the other kids at school. The way that he learns is through experimentation in a spiral motion rather than a linear. He has to experience really from the outside in. He doesn't start at the start, he starts in the middle and then works his way out.
Okay. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Does
He was judged for this at school. And because he didn't work the same way, he was labeled as dyslexic, which also became a belief system. which is simply not true. There is nothing wrong with the way that he thinks. He happens to think more expansively than others at that time, and more creatively. Therefore, when the teachers didn't know how to respond, they put a label on him, and that became his belief system. Because they didn't know how to deal with this type of learning. So now, looking at all of those experiences and understanding all of these parts, these can now be let go. All of this judgment, this understanding of dyslexia is something he can let go of. And also holding the knowing that the pieces of text that he can't focus on and read are things that he doesn't need.
Very good.
He should not be reading them if he can't focus in on them. There will be pieces of text that he will be able to read, but the ones that he can't do not resonate with him. And
means he doesn't need to.
Exactly.
Okay.
And with the focus on all of his life, the way he has learned is always through self-development, always through experimentation with creation, and never from a book. Never. He doesn't like them. He knows that it is not accurate information. Therefore, he does not read it. He'd rather figure it out for himself, even though there is some resistance to it. Yes.
Very good.
So with the drainage of the judgment from all of these people, releasing the blocks within the brain, so the third eye, judgment of expression, the throat. It's funny, the heart is the one that doesn't judge the most.
Yes.
So he is very open-hearted.
Yes.
The solar plexus, releasing. Judgment towards pleasure, sacral. Fear towards pleasure. Judgment towards vision. and judgment towards truth must be dissolved. Now, there is another area we should look at as well in this moment, and that is a fear. This fear was when he started to see about 4 years ago. What he does, he basically goes into vision but then cuts it off, almost like a reaction.
Yes.
So this fear is about what he is going to encounter when he astral travels. This is something that needs to be resolved going forward. In one of his visions, he was working on a client and her head turned around 360. And then she went around again and her face was not right. Now, when he has these visions of demonic, it will stay there for a couple of seconds, but then go. But he's not scared of it, so he needs to really remember that and take this back to the root.
Yeah. So are these visions demonic in origin?
Some of them, yes.
Some of them, yes.
Yes.
And why? Why would he receive these visions?
Is to help and to heal.
Right.
So releasing the chains of control to help the individual break free from these thought forms, from these influences, and release the patterns of control within them.
I see.
Right.
I see.
So in turn, he has also been working on himself and having similar visions and having to pull them out.
Good. So this is a process that he needs to go through.
Yes. Yes.
And it won't always be there. It's just for him to go through this process of healing.
It was just that first time, the second time he had the vision, he went in. He was unable to stay in neutrality because he saw that trigger point, that head. And it wasn't the right time for him to see that. He didn't know enough. Which now he knows enough to release it and let it go and know exactly how to deal with these things.
I've also been seeing things when I've got clients, 2 instances, and they were lovely. And I know that when they're lovely, we embrace them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're not so lovely, which I haven't experienced, which Felix has,
Mm-hmm.
it's not so wonderful then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Felix just needs to understand that that is just like all the other things in life that aren't pleasant. They're there for us to learn and heal and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm,
Yes. It just needs to be let go of.
mm, mm.
But now he doesn't seem scared when he's working with these things. He needs to be able to sit in a state of neutrality with no movement to really go that extra bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are variations and levels to the different dimensional frequencies and different dimensions that he can reach.
Mm.
The one that he is trying to reach is at a very deep level. So this one takes a lot of practice. What he hasn't realized yet is that the levels that he can reach come to him quite easily. And these are the levels that he needs to be on to harness the information
Mm.
and be able to anchor these visuals when he goes really deep into a dream state.
Mm-hmm.
That is the deepest side, the deepest end, which is he doesn't need to be there yet. He needs to work on the other parts first.
Okay.
And it will come. He needs to remember that.
Mm. Wonderful.
Don't run before you can walk.
Very good. Very good. So he just needs to be patient.
Yes, patience is a virtue. And this is it. Lessons of patience needs to come to the forefront as well. He is practicing this very well at the moment, actually. But there are patients in other areas that he's not.
Ah, good. Very good. He was wondering about the equinox.
Yes.
And he was wanting to do a session on that day. Is there any special messages for him today?
He has been guided to do this.
Mm-hmm. Good. Very good.
He needs to practice his channeling to receive the information,
Mm-hmm.
as there will be certain things that he needs to learn to discern.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He needs to navigate, but it's going to be a big day. It's a big day for let's say interspecies communication.
Oh.
So he has been doing a lot of this work without questioning it again. But it's more so on the merging of the DNA strands and the galactic gates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is something that he needs to kind of decipher for himself, as we are not going to tell him just yet.
Wonderful.
He needs to sit on his chair,
Mm-hmm.
meditate.
And meditate. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for this.
You're welcome.
See, he was feeling like he needs a bit of an activation. I was wondering about more downloads.
Well, his activations have been going through this session.
Wonderful. I thought so.
So yeah, he's been having quite a lot. He will have the drainage of the brain fog now that we've removed the judgment.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Very good.
He needs to just become more aware of his thoughts with this. He also won't be working in this company for much longer. It's time. When he moves out of this company, he will be letting go of a lot of things at a very rapid pace. The times are changing now. This is a very important message for the collective. Times are changing. The rockiness will come. It will get worse before it gets better, but it will come so fast.
Wonderful.
Make sure you have food stocked up in the house.
Very good.
This is the time where freedom comes back to you. This is the time where structures break down in the masses, but new structures are in place, ready to go. People will not understand what is going on. People need help to find their grounding and their alignment to what is truth. The connection to each other will bridge the pathway to the golden dawn.
Wonderful.
This is all we shall say.
Thank you for that.
Welcome. I think he is ready now.
Very good. Very good. I shall bring Felix back to full consciousness.
Thank you for this session today.
You're very, very welcome.